So hello and welcome to Women Build Basic Skills. This is Intro to Tile tonight with Caitie. For anybody who's new here, Caitie is one of two of our two instructors teaching basic skills sessions for our Women Build program. So Caitie teaches the first Wednesday of the month, different topic each month, and then Sandy teaches on the third Wednesday. So yeah, if it's your first time, welcome. The way we work this, I'll turn it over to Caitie here in just a second. And she will stop along the way to ask if anybody has questions during the presentation, but also feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions anywhere along the way as well. If you don't have audio capabilities, you don't have a microphone, and want to just go ahead and chat a question, put your question into the chat box and I'll relay those to Caitie as well. So thank you for joining us, and I'm going to mute myself, turn off my video.
Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. Like Tracy said, today we're doing a workshop about tiles. So we've been trying to keep workshop up and engagement up during the pandemic here. Ideally, these workshops are meant to be hands-on, in person, where you can actually like feel the tools, feel the materials, try some of this stuff out. We hope to get back to that someday, but for now, I'm going to be just demoing everything here in my basement. And I still want it to be interactive, so please chime in with questions or comments or whatever. I'm going to go through all the materials and tools you need for tile, and then talk about how to do some projects, how to plan for projects, and do a couple demonstrations here tonight. I have a PowerPoint for this that kind of goes over everything I'm saying, so you can look at more pictures and use that as a guide if you try your own project at home. So I sent that to Tracy, and she'll send that out after the workshop as well as the survey, so you can give us some feedback. All right, otherwise I'm going to jump right in, and just please let me know if like you can't see something or you can't hear something, and if you have any questions, because I'm doing this solo tonight. So yeah, just let me know. All right, so to start off, I guess I always like to go through all the kind of materials that you would need in this project. And tile is not too bad for what you need to be able to do a project. All of this stuff you can find at either a tile store or Lowe's or Home Depot. Really, any kind of hardware store will have most of this stuff. So first, I thought we would just talk about tile itself, like what the heck is a tile and what are the different kinds and how do you pick one. So this is one I'm going to be using for a demonstration tonight. This is a ceramic tile, so it's kind of like a pottery material, right? And then it has a glaze, that's why it's so shiny on this front side. This is a pretty common style of tile, the ceramic with a glaze on the front. And these come in a variety of shapes. This is kind of like a 2-inch by 4-inch rectangle. These come in squares, longer, smaller, all kinds of stuff. And these are also called like a subway tile. If you hear that, that's probably talking about this shape. These are great for like a backsplash in your kitchen or your bathroom, maybe even a shower. So I'm going to be demoing with these tonight, and again, they come in a variety of like colors too. So this is just a plain white one. And another big tile here. So this is a porcelain tile, so a slightly different material, and it's got like kind of a fake stone look to it. This is about 1 foot by 1 foot, so this is a great size for your floor, right? If you're doing like your whole floor or a kitchen or a bathroom floor, the big ones are nice because you can cover a lot of area, and you just don't have as many cracks in them or breaks, not a crack in the tile, but like spaces in between tiles. If you do your floor with tiles like this size, yeah, it's not really meant for that because there's just too much potential for stuff to break or loosen over time. It's not really meant for weight, but this is a great one for a floor to be walking all over. they also come bigger. And they do come, you can get like actual stone for your tile. Definitely more pricey, so you have to kind of consider, you know, what your budget is. But they do have stone, and yeah, they're kind of fancier. But these ones are great for a floor. We're not going to demo with that, but it's nice to know some of the options. And then this is another style of tile here. And this is actually connected with this little like glue, or sometimes it comes with like a mesh looking material on the back. And this is typically for either a backsplash or a shower. But these are great because you can do a big section, and it works like you cover a lot of ground like you would the porcelain one that I just showed you. But this, you know, it's got more detail, more shapes. You can play around with patterns. There's all kinds of variety in these as well, but you can put these on in one piece. So I can put my Thinset down, put this up on my wall, and cover a lot of area. Otherwise, you'd be here with these like one tile at a time, which would be extremely tedious and probably would not come out with lines looking as good as it does with this. So these backsplash tiles are pretty cool. And then one more that I like to point out is this is another ceramic tile. It's kind of looks like the big one I showed you, the pattern, but it's ceramic, like the white subway tile, like this one. But this actually is a little bit different. Of course, it is a different shape, but it's also, the thing I want to point out, hopefully you can see it on this, is it's got this rounded edge right here. And that is special because this is used for like a border of something. So let's say I do my whole shower with this subway tile, then I can come in with this bullnose. It's called a bullnose tile, right? The one with this rounded bullnose tile. And I can put this on the edge, and it basically just gives me a smoother kind of transition back to the wall. So I'm not abruptly stopping at this edge, which these edges aren't really finished. The top is finished, and you know, a little bit on the side, but this whole edge isn't finished on these tiles. But this one is finished all the way down to where it runs into the wall. So this is your border tile. So if you wanted to do a little design element, get kind of fancy, like in your kitchen backsplash or your shower, some bullnose tiles is what you would be looking for. So those are, you know, a few varieties of tiles. Of course, if you are, you know, redesigning any kitchen or bathroom tile project, there is a ton of variety, so it can be overwhelming, but those are kind of, you know, some things to look out for and consider when you're trying to make your choices, right? So tile obviously is important for a tile project. Also going to go through the other materials right now, and then we'll get into tools, and I'll show you how to use all this stuff in a little bit. So the other thing that we need is our Thinset, or this is called tile adhesive. This is basically the stuff that we are going to put down underneath our tile. So this is what we're going to put down, stick our tile to it, let it dry. This is going to hold it in place. So there's kind of some different types in this, but basically I just get like an all-purpose Thinset. It doesn't really need to be fancy. I mean, you can read through all the different options at the store and get something specific to your project, but I usually just go with an all-purpose Thinset, and that's always you know, done just well for me. And they come in different sizes, so I just got a small one because we're just doing a little demo tonight. But they come bigger, and you can also get Thinset that you can actually mix yourself. So if you're going to be doing a lot or stopping and starting a project, that would be a good way to go, is to get like a bag of the powdered stuff, and then you add water, mix it to the right consistency, and then you can use it in like small batches. It is a little bit more like labor intensive because you can't mix a whole big batch and then let it sit. you'd have to mix like a small amount, do your tile, mix more, do your tile. But depending on, like I said, your project and specific needs, that could be an option for you. And then you can, then you need grout, which looks like this. And the grout is basically the stuff that fills in all the gaps between your tiles. So after we've used our Thinset, put our tile down, let it dry, then I'm going to come back and grout it. And the grout is pretty important. Not only does it give you a finished look, but this helps fill in all the gaps. So you're not having any air pockets or gaps in your tile. And that's going to make sure that stuff doesn't shift or move or crack or break over time. So it is important to do this step well. And I'll give you some pointers on how to do that. So in terms of grout, again, there's different varieties. And I think the biggest one is if you get sanded grout or unsanded grout. And you can see right here, I have the sanded kind. Right? Yeah, the sanded kind. And this is going to be for smaller spaces in between my tiles. So we'll get to kind of the spacing of stuff. But on here, it tells me for 1/8 to 1/2 inch gaps in my tiles. So for example, this one, I have pretty small. This is probably about 1/8. So for this, I'm going to want this sanded grout. If I were to do like big floor tiles, sometimes the bigger the tile, it looks better with like a bigger gap. And so if you do that bigger gap, then you would just need to get the grout that goes with that size gap. And all of that information is on your on the product information. So that's something to look out for. Don't just grab any one and then go home and realize it's not the right kind. This also has, this kind of shows you the color, and we're going to use this tonight so you'll be able to see it. And this one is a powdered one, so we're actually going to mix some of this up and talk about how to do that in a little while. So tile, Thinset, grout, the last thing you need is some spacers. And I got a whole bag of spacers that look like this on the bag. These are 1/4 inch spacers. And they basically are this little, you can see this little plus sign. And those are important because that's what's going to make sure that we have nice clean lines in all of our tile. These also come in different sizes. So like we just talked about with the grout, you can go smaller, larger, kind of whatever your style preference is, I guess. And I'll show you guys how to use these too. So that's kind of overview for the materials. Any questions on that, just chime in or chat. Like Tracy said, there's not too many people, so you can also unmute and throw them at me if you want. I am going to go keep rolling, so just, stop me if you have questions. I like to cover this because the first couple times we did this workshop, this was the most commonly asked question, and that is, how do you color match a tile? So I'm going to go through kind of some different options with it, and hopefully this is a question people have. But so color matching tiles can be tricky. My first piece of advice is to avoid needing to color match. So what I mean by that is, if you are doing a project right now, you haven't bought anything, you're going to go and buy all the material yourself or have a contractor do it. Order a little bit extra. So let's say you do break a tile, you already have a replacement. And if for whatever reason you don't have a replacement, hopefully you have the information. So save, the box that the tile came in or the store that you got it from, some kind of information as to how you can track that tile down again, right? But the first thing would be just saving yourself a little bit extra. I recommend this for if you're doing vinyl flooring or anything, just to account for mistakes and in case you need to go and repair something later. So that's my first piece of advice, is to avoid it if possible. The second way you can go about finding this replacement tile if you don't have information is you can go through the manufacturer. So if you have any information about the tile, you can track it down using that, or you know, find the store that you went to and see if they have information. And a good option for this is to go to like a tile supplier rather than like a Lowe's or Home Depot. So like a tile store is going to have way more options than what you see on the shelf at Lowe's or Home Depot, right? Because they specialize in this. And so maybe they don't have this exactly, but like a paint store, maybe they can do some kind of close or like a match to it. So that's an option, is just going somewhere that has a lot more variety, even if it wasn't the place you got it. Another option is you can do like a custom replacement. And I just like kind of Googled this, doing some research for this the first time I had this question. And there is like some websites, if you just Google like color matching a tile, and you can pay to get like a custom one matched. It is kind of pricey. So again, like if you can avoid it or just find that tile again, that would be a better option. But you know, some of your houses, like if it's an old house or, you know, it was done decades ago, maybe they don't have it at Lowe's right now, but that is an option if you so need it. And I threw this one in because it's kind of fun and quirky, but you can always do an accent tile, right? So if you broke one tile or two tiles in the floor, you can just do something different, put a little pop of color in there, or like a shower backsplash. You can put in an accent, like a pattern one, and that could be kind of fun and take some of the pressure off of having like a perfect match color, right? So those are some options. It is kind of a headache to kind of go through the process of all of that, but it is possible. So if anybody is in that situation, yeah, it's possible. Okay. Next, I'm going to start going into some of our tools that you would need to do your projects. And I don't have all of these tools with me. I mostly have like the hand tools, but in the PowerPoint, it has pictures and the names of everything that I'm going to be talking about again. So first thing is our trowel. So this is a trowel, and this is what we use for spreading our Thinset or our adhesive, the stuff we put down before the tile. And as you can see, this one has notches in it, so kind of rectangular notches on two sides. And I'll show you more about why this is important when I do the demonstration. But these come in different size notches. So these are, just for reference, like I can almost fit my pinky in here. These are kind of big. They also have ones that are the same rectangle shape, but smaller. So if I was doing smaller tiles, I would want smaller notches. For a big tile, or kind of like a standard size tile, this size is fine. And I guess the reason that this is notched is because it's actually going to create kind of grooves in our Thinset, which I'll show you. But these grooves help make a little air pocket. So when we put our tiles down, we actually kind of push it into place. It's going to help it really suction and stick down. So that's why we have the grooves. And you'll see some trowels that have a V shape instead of a rectangle. And the reason being, the V is going to take out more, I guess it's gonna leave like a slightly less deep of grooves, and it's gonna remove more of the Thinset. So that's kind of the differences when you see these. But this size here is great for, you know, most projects that you're gonna do. So that's our trowel. Let me see where. Okay, then I have my float, which looks like this. It's got a handle, and this is kind of a foamy material. It's still pretty hard. Like I'm not really indenting it, but it's soft. And this is what I use for the grout. So when I'm pushing grout into all those spaces in my tiles, this nice float, it's soft because I don't want to scratch up the ceramic cover on my tile, or the glaze on my tile. or damage the surface in any way, but I do want to be able to put pressure in to really fill those gaps. And again, you'll see this in the demonstration, but my tile float. We already went through spacers. Okay, some more kind of hand tools that we need for cutting and prepping our area. So this one here kind of looks like a chisel and kind of a scraper. And this is super handy for kind of the preparation of our surface, right? We want to make sure that we're starting with a really clean surface, nice clean edges. So our Thinset will adhere to the surface. We don't want like a bunch of crumbs and gunk on the floor. So that's our prep tool. Then this guy here, this is a grout remover. And I don't know if you can see like the tip on this. It's actually like really rough right here. And this is to help me like scrape out, grind out in between the grooves, as opposed to this one that would be like a larger, like kind of already cleared area. This one is pretty slender, so I can fit between grooves and clean out all my grout. And I'll go into why that's important in a little bit. And then these guys here are tile nippers, and basically they kind of squeeze together like pliers and cut the edges of tiles. So this would be like, let's say I need to go around like a pipe or a toilet or something like that. This can kind of help you with the edges. It's definitely not perfect, but it is, it'll get the job done, especially if you have like a shower cover or something going over it and you don't need a perfect hole. And if it's on an edge, these will work great. They also have like power tool versions of most of these. So this same bit here, you can get on like a multi-tool or like a Dremel kind of tool. They have bits, so it's motorized, which is great if you're doing like large scale. If you're replacing one tile, you can buy this for less than $10. But if you're like replacing a whole lot, you might want to invest in the motorized, or if you already have that option. They also have what's called like a hole saw, which has this same rough edge as the bit. And it's basically just like what it sounds, a hole that you attach into a drill, either a battery or a corded drill. And this will drill out a hole in the middle of your tile, which is pretty cool. I don't have that, so I'm not going to demonstrate it tonight, but this would be like if you need a cutout for a shower head and it's right in the middle of your tile, then like these nippers aren't going to help you. None of the hand tools are going to do it. You're going to need to get that bit and drill the hole into the center of the tile. So again, there's a picture of that in the slideshow that we'll send out after. And then the last tool, I'm going to grab it. The last tool that I'm going to show you is this tile cutter. So this is basically a table, and up here, see how I can point to it, right here, there's this wheel that actually cuts the glaze on your tile, and then there's a bar right here that you press down and it will crack your tile in half, or wherever you're trying to cut it. And this is the tool I'm going to be using tonight to demonstrate. This is great for, like if you don't want to invest in buying a tile saw, which I'll talk about in a second, but this is perfect for like these kind of subway tiles. The wheel cracks this glaze, and then you snap it and it cuts in half, and it does fairly well. And then by the time you grout it, it looks really great. And so this is like a pretty DIY friendly tool. You can buy these at Lowe's and Home Depot. I think it's about 20 or 25 bucks, which is not bad. The other option is, again, like an upgraded version is a tile saw. These are like pretty expensive, so I don't think most people would buy them for, redoing something at home. And the tile saw, it has like a diamond bit blade, so it's gonna cut through the stone or porcelain or ceramic. And it also is a wet saw, which means it's spraying water onto the blade as it cuts. And the reason being because it gets really hot when it's trying to cut through this. So this is a way to keep the temperature down and also keep the dust down. So it's kind of an involved tool. Yeah, and it's pretty expensive, but you can rent some of this stuff from the Tacoma Tool Library, actually. I rented one of these for the first workshop we did, and it was great. So you can get a membership with them and then check stuff out like you would a book at the library. It's free. I do believe that they have a wet saw, so if you wanted to just try it out, you could rent it for a weekend and do your project and then return it, and you didn't have to spend like hundreds of dollars to buy a saw. So that's also an option. And they have all the hand tools and stuff there too. So check them out if you haven't already, the Tacoma Tool Library. Okay. I think that's it for my tools. So any questions on that, chime in. Otherwise, I'm going to start going into kind of how to prep for a project. Okay, make myself some room here. So, let me know if everybody can hear me okay. I'm gonna tilt my screen down here to my little demo board. But, so for my project preparation, kind of the first thing that we need to do and consider is what surface am I going onto? So in this case, I'm demoing on a plywood piece of wood that is in fairly good condition. I got it just before this project, so it's not really been damaged or used at all. But if you are, say going right onto floor that's been in your house forever, like you need to check the condition of that floor. So is it got big level changes in the floor? Does it have any spots that are rotting? Like all of that stuff you need to look at and consider and address before you tile it, right? We want to be starting with a level, clean floor that's in good condition. So if you have any serious things you need to address, do it before. And like in terms of, do I need to put down like a new layer of flooring on top of it or something? That really just depends on the condition of the floor underneath. But they do make, it's called backer board, and it's basically like a hardy fiber cement material, and that you can put down on top of your existing floor. That would give you a nice clean surface. Or you could put this up like in your shower walls if you needed to, if you wanted to add some support and kind of give yourself a better starting point. So the backer board is a potential step. And then in order to, sorry, I skipped one thing. Make sure your floor is clean, right? So if you need to sand down any bumps, vacuum up dust, wipe stuff down, whatever you need to do to get a nice clean surface. And this isn't the best demonstration. Like you can see, I have some extra Thinset from previous times. I got a little grout. So that's all stuff I can use that scraper tool to kind of clean up and prepare my area, right? And then we also need to figure out like our starting point. So if I just walk into a room, where am I going to start my tiles? Or, if I'm doing a backsplash or a shower, like we need to figure out the layout before we just start putting Thinset down on the floor and putting our tiles down. So
Maybe we have a comment or a question about the tiles not being level. Emily says she's worried about the tiles not being level.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of the tiles being like even like to the other tiles, I'm going to show you when we actually lay some tiles how to make sure we get like this field here, um, in line with each other. What I was talking about just a second ago is like if your existing floor is not level, um, that could be a larger problem, or maybe like you just have like a low spot or something. And they do actually make it's called floor leveler, and it basically just you make this like mixture, and it will kind of sink to the lowest spot. So like maybe I'm in the center of my room, I have like a little divot or something. If I try to just put my tiles over that, it potentially has a weak spot that if I step on that, am I going to crack my tiles or something? You don't want that. So in that case, you could put some of this floor leveler in, and it basically would just self level in that spot. And then you let it set for 24 or 48 hours, whatever the recommended time is on the product. And then I could tile over that, and now I know everything underneath it is level. I don't have any weird spots going on. And then I'll show you guys in a second how to make sure that these are all set at the right height. Right. Was there another question in the chat? I saw some stuff popping up.
Yeah, is backer board waterproof? And yeah, and then you put that on before the quick set is what Emily asked.
Yes, you would put on your backer board before the thin set. And I have some pictures of this in the PowerPoint as well, like what the backer board looks like down on the floor. I do think it's probably waterproof, but also your tiles are waterproof if you do it all right. So you don't have to worry too much about that. And hopefully like in your bathrooms, if you have drywall up in your bathrooms, it should already be waterproof, but yeah, the backer board would just give you an extra layer. I'm not sure actually if it's waterproof or not, but in theory, like you put that on, it would help you get your tiles to adhere better. And then once we put the grout in between all of our tiles, this is all waterproof. So it's less important if the layer under it is waterproof. The most important thing is making sure we get this done correctly, right?
And then what if you're laying in a basement on foundation? Do you still need backer board?
No, so like our houses at Habitat, it's a slab foundation, and we can put our Thinset and tile right onto that. So the backer board, I would really just recommend if like you had pretty damaged like subfloor, like if you had a plywood subfloor, or like, I don't know if you can see this board. This is a like an OSB floor. Sometimes these get like kind of chipped and weird, and in that case, I might put backer board down because it just gives me a smooth, clean surface to start from. So hopefully that answers some of those questions. Okay, so in order to kind of start my layout, I like to, like how I did in this one, I like to find the center of something. So I'm basically going to measure my room and find center point of that room. And then from there, I can start laying my tiles on that line, basically. So I can like make a chalk line on the center of the room and go outwards from there. And that'll help you make sure that, your tiles are going square. So like actually in a straight line, like they're not going to start veering like this. It'll kind of help you get off to like a really straight square start.
One more quick question, Caitie. Sorry. Some foundations have gouged concrete. Would you concrete over those to level first if that was the case?
I haven't actually encountered that before, but I would imagine, yeah, if you have like gouged or grooves in your concrete, you would want to either fill that in with some floor leveler, or in that case, I guess you could use the backer board, because you don't want to have, basically you don't want to have like any kind of air pockets under your tiles. So if there's a any air pocket, it's a potential for a tile to be cracked, and especially on the floor because you're going to be walking over that. So if I have a pocket right here and I step here, is it going to crack or is it going to shift and I'm going to crack all the grout? So yeah, I would either, you know, use a floor leveler or backer in that case. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to get my layout line, right? And then one other thing that I like to do before I start a project is kind of like just dry fit layout all my tiles. So maybe I find my center line and I put 2 here and put a row and just see how it looks in the room. Basically, like what I'm trying to avoid is having a really tiny tile over here and like a full size tile over here. If that was the case, I might try to shift or start out with like a half tile here and a half tile on this side. And that's not something that you have to do, but just aesthetically, I think it looks nice to kind of have an even split on either side, kind of how this is, rather than tiny and really big. And the other thing to think about is like what's the best use of your materials. So if I have half and half and it works out that I can use both of these pieces on opposite sides, then I'm not wasting a lot of material, right? I don't want to end up putting, you know, like a slightly bigger than halfway tile and then I need like way more material. So sorry, I don't know if that made sense. I kind of said that weird, but basically like that's just something to consider ahead of time. And also when you're doing an estimate about how much material you need, if you kind of do a little bit of math, like you can measure your tile, measure your gaps, figure out what that actually looks like and how that looks in the space, right? So definitely something to consider first. Same thing if you're doing like a shower or backsplash, and I'll talk about that, I guess, in a little bit as well. Yeah, so after I've prepped my floor, I've done my layout, then I'm kind of ready to start laying my tiles. So scrape off some of this Thinset really quick before we get too into it. Okay, so that worked pretty well. There's a really thin layer, but I'm not worried about that. This thing works really great. And one piece of advice I will say, if you're kind of doing this in batches or, you know, you need to go and mix more Thinset or whatever, try to scrape off all this extra stuff while it's still wet. It's a lot easier to get off than when it's dry, right? And I'm going to take out some of this grout sticking in as well. Okay, so that's pretty good here. All right, so I don't want anything in my way of putting in my tile. Right. Okay, so now I'm getting my Thinset out and we're going to start with this and I'll show you how to use this trowel, right? Okay, so the way I like to do it is, as you saw before, there's 2 sides that are notched and then 2 sides that are flat. I like to start with my flat side and spread out some of this Thinset. And I do want to get it on, kind of covering the whole area. Working at a great spot here. I want to get a nice kind of thick layer on, right? Because I'm going to smooth this out in a minute. And you don't want to put too much of this down, right? So I'm not going to do like all of this and all of this. I'm going to just stick to the section that I'm working in first and cover it all pretty well. Okay, and this I'm all doing with the smooth side still. Then I'm going to switch over to my grooved side, and this is going to create these grooves like we talked about, which is essentially getting these air pockets in here, which is going to help us create some suction. So what I'm looking for in this is, you guys see these at all? Okay, there we go. So what I'm looking for is kind of even thicknesses of how tall my grooves are basically, and I want it even the whole way, and this is kind of related to getting these tiles set at the right height. I'm really high here. I can see I'm a little low here, so I'm actually going to add a little bit more in that. So I want to start off from even coverage and then take off excess with this. Oops. And also, while I'm doing this, I made a mess of it now. I'm holding this at like a 45-degree angle, and that will help me remove excess, create grooves. It's pretty good. And it doesn't have to be, you know, perfect, but we do want it fairly close. So once I start off with this even layer, I am going to try to clean off these as I go, just so I don't have any stuff on the face of my tiles, because I don't want to be scraping on this afterwards, right? So then I have which tile? I already pre-cut some of them. Here we go. So I have a few tiles that I'm ready to put on, and now I need my spacers, right? So these spacers that we showed you guys earlier, and these actually go on the tile like standing upright like this. I don't want to put it down flat in between my tiles. So that's a kind of common mistake. But if I put this down, you know, flat in my tile like this, it's going to get stuck down there and all my Thinset, adhesive, and grout, and create an air pocket, which we do not want. So this is going to stand upright in between my tiles like this. And then I'm going to take those out before I do the grout. And so these are, it's always important to use two of them. So if I just put one in the center, I kind of create like a potential pivot point. I don't want that, right? I want two. And I'm actually going to start by putting my tile in and then add the spacers. And so what I'm doing is I'm starting in the corner of both of these, and then I'm going to push it down and kind of wiggle it back and forth. And what this is doing is this is suctioning in all those grooves and kind of flattening it out, sucking it in. So if I tried to pull this up right now, it wouldn't just immediately come up. It would be pretty stuck in there already. And by starting in this corner and kind of pushing out, it basically makes sure that I don't squish all of this Thinset into my grooves, because that's something that I would need to clean out as well. So once I'm suctioned in, then I'm going to work my spacers in there. And again, putting two on each side. So I'm going to put two there, and I'm going to put two on the top as well. And make sure that I'm pushed in all the way over here as well. All right, so I'm tight on all my spacers. That is good for our first tile, right? And if you are just starting this for the first time, what I would recommend is you go through your Thinset, push your tile into place, and then actually pull up your first tile, and you'll be able to see on the back of it, like if you got good coverage with your Thinset, based on if you have Thinset everywhere on your tile, or let's say you're missing some, then you know, like, oh, it looks like, you know, in this top section I was a little thin, so just to give you a kind of a gauge of what you need to be doing, you can do a tester first, and then no big deal, wipe it off the back, redo the thin set, smooth it out, groove it out, and then put it down, no problem. So I'll do another one here, starting the same way. So I'm in my corner, and then I'm gonna, I'm giving it a pretty good push. I'm working off a tabletop, but I'm giving it a pretty good push in, and I can see that I have a good amount of thin set coming up in this groove here, and I do want to pull some of this out because this is really where I want my grout, right, the darker stuff to go. So I don't want my whole groove full of this thin set. So you can actually use a spacer to help you kind of just scrape out some of this extra stuff. Again, when it's wet, super friendly to work with, right? Don't let it dry or you'll be there for a while. Okay, so I got that in. And then again, for the height of your tiles, you can kind of run your finger across, and it feels like I'm good this way, but I'm a little high coming from here. So this edge still needs to go down a little bit. You can do a finger check. You can also, especially if you're on a floor, you can put a level on this and get a better idea. And go in with my spacers again. And these spacers are super important because, this is what's given us our clean grout lines. So we want those to be right. Scrape out a little bit more of that, leave my spacer in. Pretty darn good, right? Okay. And you just keep going like this for, until you finish your project. I am gonna, no, okay. So I do need to cut this piece. And so let's say like, maybe I would do like most of my field and leave like a few cuts, and then I could go and cut a bunch and then come back and put them down. So I'm going to pretend like I'm going to be stepping away for a few minutes and actually clean out this stuff so it doesn't dry in place. And it's not going to, it's not going to dry in the amount of time it's going to take me to cut one tile. But, if I'm cutting 5 or 6 tiles, I might just walk away so I don't have to deal with any weird stuff after. So again, easy to get up when it's all clean, right? Or when it's still wet, sorry. Okay, so got that. Now what you can do is you can either measure to your end here, or you can do this option, which is just put your spacers in. Like, let's say I'm doing this for real. This is what it's going to look like, right? But this is kind of the dry fit version, right? This in all the way, and then you can make a little mark right on your edge, and that's what you know your spacers are going to be like how they are now. So you can make a little mark, and then you know where to cut it. You can also do the tape measure version. Either way is just fine. I went with a little mark on my side here. And then cut it. I'm going to try to do it on my same table here. So this is when I would be using this tile cutter. And it's got this lever here. So this is how I'm going to operate, sliding up and down. And my wheel is right here at the front. So what I'm going to do is put my tile here, and on this there is this little raised part here, and this is important because that's what's creating a lever with this push bar, and this raised area is what's going to help us crack our tile by pushing down like that. So I'm going to take my mark and just I'm eyeballing, lining it up with my wheel here. Okay, so that's pretty good. And then I want to make sure my tile is pushed all the way up along this straight edge here. If I do it at an angle, then my cut's going to be at an angle as well. So I'm going to take this. It makes kind of a not great noise, but I'm going to take this wheel and basically make a line, like a groove. And what this is doing is this is kind of scoring that glazed, shiny coat right on top. A couple more maybe. And then I'm going to lift this up, and that allows the push bar to drop into place. And then when I push down, oh, didn't quite crack, so I'm going to do a few more runs. Okay, now I'm going to push down and see. Perfect. So I pushed down, and that broke my tile just in two like that. And you can see it's pretty straight cut. Sometimes it is really hard to cut it, like if you're doing it right on the edge. It's better when you have a space on either side that bar can push down into, but that's how I would do that. So I could make a handful of cuts at this point, and come back and then put them all in. And now I'm going to show you another option to Thinset. Like, let's say I had a wall right here, and maybe I can't fit this big, kind of cumbersome trowel in here. I can do what's called back buttering, which is kind of a fun term, but I'm basically gonna, make it like a sandwich on the back, and just get a nice layer on the back, just like I would on the floor or your backsplash. And then same thing, I'm gonna make grooves in it. This one's tricky because it's kind of small, but get the idea, right? Still want to make sure I have full coverage. Run my grooves in it like that. You can see pretty good. And then make sure you get it in the right direction, right? We want all of our, what's called a factory edge, like the finish side towards my other tiles and the cut side to my wall. Suction this in, pretty good. Do a little hand check too. Yeah. And then add my spacers, all 4 of them. Even though it's a tiny tile, I do want my 2 per side so I don't have any lever points. And then I like to just squeeze it in tight to my tiles, and that's pretty darn good, right? So I could just continue this for my whole project, right? We are going to go ahead and keep going, and I'm going to show you guys how to grout it. But in theory, we would, or in reality, not in theory, in reality, we would let this set. So at least 24 hours, and I would say, like, refer to your product directions on this. So if you're using a Thinset and it says, let it set for 36 hours, then let it set for 36 hours. Don't try to shortchange it. Like, these products have specific directions because that is what they're basically saying. If you do it like this, it's guaranteed to work. So do it how they say to do it. Let it set. And we would come back and take all of our spacers out, right? Once it's fully adhered and in place, you don't need these spacers in it anymore. Okay, and then I can get my grout ready. Okay, so for this grout, again, I'm going to follow the instructions on the back. This is going to tell you approximately, see, they have little pictures and step-by-step directions. It will give you information about, like, okay, if you use this whole container, then use this much water, and vice versa. You can also just kind of get the right consistency. And the consistency we're going for is kind of like peanut butter. Like, we want it to be smooth and pliable, but not runny, right? It shouldn't be dripping all over stuff. So I'm gonna go get a mixer really quick. All right, so you can use like a drill mixer for this, like with a kind of a paddle or something. I'm using a good old-fashioned shim. Will do the trick. And I'm just mixing a tiny batch, so it really doesn't need a lot of water. It's kind of easy to overdo it, making a small batch here. Let's see how I do. Overdid it. So I'm going to mix this up. And one thing with a lot of these grouts, they recommend that you mix it and then you let it sit for 10 to 15 minutes. And that's going to allow it to kind of set a little bit. So it'll get all the ingredients active. And then you can come back and use it. So you can prep it a little bit before. Maybe I should have prepped it before we were taking that cut, and then it would be ready to go by the time I'm ready to use it. Okay, so I got this mixed up, and this is kind of the consistency I'm looking for. Like, you know, I can still move it around pretty easily, but I'm not dripping right off of my my stick here, so that's pretty good. I'm gonna skip the wait 15 minutes step because it's not a life project, right? Okay, and then I need my floaty. So I have my float. I'm ready to put my grout on my finished tiles after they've set. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some of my float and start pushing it in my grooves. And this I'm going to also do at a 45-degree angle, like so. And you're basically just going to go right over these tiles because they're so small. If we were doing the tiles that are like a foot big, then maybe I would just try to go on my edges and not get my whole tiles dirty. But for this, they're too small to do that. So you can go. Actually, you should go at multiple different directions, and this is gonna just kind of ensure that I really get those whole grooves filled up and pushed in all the way. A little bit more here. Kind of go all different directions. And this, the reason we want to go at a 45, if I go kind of perpendicular, I have a tendency to kind of scrape some of it out. And, you know, we don't want that. And it kind of makes like a little bump in it. So if you go at a 45, then we don't have any of that resistance. And as you do this, you can try to get off any excess from the face of the tiles while it's still wet. Like, we don't need all of this on here. And I'm going to give that a few minutes to set up, and then I'll show you the next step, which is kind of cleaning it off. A little bit of, okay, that's pretty good. So this, I would just do this kind of in one swoop through. Like, I don't want to go back to setting tiles and then go back to grouting. I would try to get all of my tiles set and then just grout the whole thing, and then come back and clean it, which is kind of the fun step. Let me see if I have anything else to go over before I clear this off. Well, I guess, you know, we briefly talked about like a shower and backsplash, which all of these same steps would apply for that. Like, you would still want to prepare your area. You would still want to figure out your layers or your layout and how everything's going to work out. The only like differences that would come into play is you might need some of those bullnose tiles, which have the edge. You apply it all in the same way, but you know, that's something to account for in your layout. And then I did want to talk about how to replace like a single cracked tile, which at this point we really kind of covered all of the skills necessary for it, but I'm not going to actually demonstrate it, but I am going to talk about it. So let's say like you know, I have a tile here cracked and I don't need to replace the whole thing. I just need to replace this tile. So what you can do is start with the tile that's cracked, and we basically need to get that tile out of there. So you can use a hammer and a chisel, and basically wherever the crack is, that's already the weak spot. So if you hammer or chisel in that spot, it'll make more cracks in your tile. And then you can pull those pieces out, get that stuff out of there. And then you have to go back to that preparing your floor or preparing your area. And for that, you could use your scraper, or you can also get like a motorized scraper, or use a chisel and a hammer. But you need to get all of that extra, or that original Thinset out. So that stuff that I kind of scraped off over here first, you're going to have a whole layer of that. That all needs to come out, or we're not going to be able to get our tile back on at the same level. So that's kind of the worst part of it, is clearing all of that stuff out, and all of the grout too, which you could use your grout remover tool for. You want to scrape all of that out, prepare the area like it's brand new, and then we would just go ahead and set the tile the same way we just set these, by putting down our Thinset or back buttering our tile, squishing it into place. I would still use spacers just to make sure you're all even, your sides are even, but you could also probably eyeball it if it's just one. But get it nice and even, let it set, come back and grout it, come back and clean it, and you are good to go. All right, so it's been a few minutes, and I'm gonna go ahead and clean this off. So what I have here is just like a sponge, like a car washing sponge kind of size. I'm gonna go ahead and get this wet and then wring out all the excess. Okay, so I wrung out most of the excess. It is kind of damp, which is what we want. I'm going to start going over all of these tiles, and you're just wiping. Same thing, I go at a 45. And basically what I do is, like, once I have a dirty spot on the sponge, I don't use that same spot again. I'm going to keep rotating multiple times, so I'm not just like making it dirtier over and over again. Oh, I kind of did it on that one. Same thing, I like to just go at a 45, and just like this. Okay, and basically, like, once I've gone through sweeps on all sides, I'm going to go and rinse this out, or bring a bucket with you, rinse it out, and we would just keep doing that same process, which I'm not going to make you guys watch the whole thing, but we would do that until I'm kind of clean over all of these tiles. And you can see, like, once I go over that, it kind of gives me a little bit of an indent in my tile here. That's exactly what we want. We don't want this like really thick filled in section. Once I clean that off, it'll look like these more finished seams over here. So that's what we're going for. Any questions on any of this? It's been kind of quiet, so I hope you guys are still here with me. I just have a few other kind of pointers and kind of common problems that we run into sometimes doing tiling. So I have pictures of some of these in the PowerPoint, but basically, like, things that could go wrong when you're doing tile. One is like the level of the tiles that we've already talked about. So making sure that we're pushing them in so that they're all at the same height, doing a finger check or a level check. That's a big one. And then another big one is like all the lines in the tiles not moving or not lining up correctly. So that would be like if we didn't use the spacers correctly, or just started getting kind of sloppy or rushing when we were doing it, and then you come back and you have like mismatched joints. It looks really bad at the end. So yeah, I have some pretty gnarly pictures in here that you can look at, but we do want to try to avoid that while we're working on it. And then another kind of common thing is if we have cracked grout. So like, let's say we did this project a while ago, or somebody else did this project, and now I'm starting to get cracks in the grout. So that's not too hard to replace. It's easier than replacing the whole tile. Basically, you just need to scrape out all the grout, and it is an important step to scrape it out. Like, you don't want to just put more grout into it and hope that that solves it. It's for the same reason I've said probably too many times, but the air pockets. So there's any air in that cracked section, it's just going to crack again. It's only a matter of time. So if you scrape it out and give yourself like a nice clean start, then when you put your grout in, it'll be nice and solid and good to go. And then a few other things that I hadn't really touched on yet, but like, let's say I'm going from carpet to tile or carpet to hardwood floor. You probably are going to need some kind of transition strip, and this is basically what it sounds like when you're transitioning from two different types of flooring, or potentially two different thicknesses. Like maybe I'm going from a thin laminate or vinyl to tile, which is a little bit thicker. They make lots of different kinds of transition strips, so just know, like, you know, if that's like a burning question in your mind, they definitely have something that you're looking for. You can get ones that match your tile, ones that match your laminate, and then there's different kinds that go from like laminate to tile or carpet to tile, and they'll have like different thicknesses with a nice finished like rounded strip. So that will help you, you know, transition from two different types of flooring, basically. What else? Oh, I didn't even say my favorite one, but don't tile yourself into a corner, which I can't believe I haven't said yet. But basically, you know, if we're tiling a whole room, and let's say I start in the center, I don't want to just like keep working my way and then be backed into a corner and then I'm stuck there. Sounds kind of funny, but it does happen, because you don't want to walk on all those tiles that you just set. That's going to throw off the level of everything, and you know you're going to potentially slide stuff around until it's hit that 36 or 72 hours to set, right? So make sure like you work your way to a wall and then you work your way back to the center of the room, so you're not stuck at any point. So I just had to say that, throw that one out there. I think that's everything that I have. If anybody has questions, please feel free to chime in. I hope you learned something even on this weird Zoom setting. And I hope you feel inspired to try your own project. Like I said, that PowerPoint will be coming out that has lots of pictures, so you can see, if you didn't see anything tonight, you can look at the pictures and get some more information. But I hope you guys enjoyed tonight, and any questions, yeah, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Caitie. Messages saying thank you so much. Very helpful info.
Sweet.
Final questions, going once, going twice.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you guys for coming tonight.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And we will send out both Caitie's PowerPoint slides and the video recording of this presentation tomorrow to everybody who's attended. So thanks for joining us, and look for an email coming tomorrow.
I have a question. How often do you guys do these? And then do I need to sign in to make sure that I get the information sent to me?
I can see your name. You're okay. Dorothy.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's guesswork. If I just see Jennifer or something, you know, what you don't want to do is sign in with just iPhone, because then we can't tell who's who. But yeah, I was able to figure out who all attended here. So
okay, good.
Yep. So no, you'll get that email tomorrow. And we do the skills workshops on the first and the third Wednesdays of the month. We try to have different sessions. We're about to set our lineup for the next 6 months. So we've got sessions planned through June, and then Caitie and Sandy, who's the other instructor, and I will meet to decide on new sessions for July through December. So 2 sessions a month, basic skills, and then the second Wednesday of every month is our leadership series. So yeah, so check that one out too.
Thank you so much. Have a blessed evening.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. All right, anybody else? Okay, great. Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks, Caitie, for another fabulous session. And you guys will all get an email tomorrow. Have a good night. All right, bye.